Welcome to M2M Coverage. I am Suraj Zaveri, and today we will be going to our chief UFC analyst, Zunair Mohiuddin, for our first ever UFC segment. UFC 249 took place a couple weeks back, and we as a sports show felt it to be our job to cover this first real return to sports as we see things around the nation begin to open up amidst this pandemic. Now, Zunair, what's up?
What's up, man? It's so crazy. It's crazy times we live in.
Now, Zunair, I haven't followed UFC very closely myself. You can assume I don't know anything. I just see two guys punching each other and getting bloody, and I think to myself, oh, that's cool. But for our viewers out there who may not know much, and people like me, can you sort of explain how you got into UFC and what you really look for when it comes to a matchup?
So I think everybody has like a fascination with martial arts or fighting somewhere deep inside their like caveman DNA. I think everybody's a little bit psychotic in that way. And I went on a quest to figure out what worked in a fight. Like what was real, our pressure points real, is like no touch martial arts real. Turns out that's all BS. I went to UFC 1, where they tested that theory for the first kickboxer, a boxer, they had a sumo wrestler even. They had all these people of different arts, and then they had this one short, skinny guy named Royce Gracie. He was like a, they called him a Brazilian jiu-jitsu guy. No one knew what that meant. But as soon as the fight started, he started tapping people out. And so he tapped out one guy, the next guy, the third guy, and he won the whole thing. And then they did it again, and the Brazilian jiu-jitsu guy won again. So I was like, okay, so at least one thing works, and that's Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. So I got into Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, went into class the first day, and everyone tapped me. Everyone made me feel like a moron, and I was like, is this some sort of magic or what? But I stuck with it, and it's been one of the most rewarding journeys of my life. And then as I got into Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, I started getting into the UFC and started learning more about mixed martial arts rather than just Jiu-Jitsu. And yeah, man, I like it. I love it. It's awesome.
Yeah, that's a really interesting story. I mean, it's been really popular because it was the first thing that really came back during this pandemic. I mean, it's easier to have fighters than it is to have some other sport compete, right?
Exactly. And I think Dana White, the commissioner, is at the forefront of that. He consistently shows that despite what everyone thinks, he feels that his business can go on. And he finds a way to inspire small businesses by getting up and getting running and starting work. I think it's great.
Yeah, so let's get into the UFC fights that have happened over the past couple of weeks. First, let's begin with the UFC Fight Night on May 16th. Alistair Overeem defeated Walt Harris in 2 rounds. The first question I had was, does Overeem have one last title run left in him?
No, he doesn't. I think Alistair Overeem is 40 years old. He's over the hill. He's a multiple-time K1 kickboxing champ, Strikeforce champ. He's seen it all. He's done everything. And actually, the day after the fight, he celebrated his 40th birthday. I think that is a cool win for Alistair Overeem, who shows that he can still get in there and scrap with everybody. But maybe a title run and then a run to eventually Stipe Miocic is not what he wants to see in his near future. I think he should look to round out his career and take big money fights because he's a big money fighter. And then with Walt Harris being concerned, I think it's been tough for him. As you remember, I'm sure there was a UFC fighter who lost his stepdaughter in like a kidnapping around the Auburn area, and that was Walt Harris. And so he had been going through a lot in camp, a lot leading up to the fight. And the fight wasn't what he hoped. And I think it's been a tough couple months, tough couple weeks for Walt Harris. And I think he should just go home to his family and just recoup, figure things out. He's always got power, and that power is always going to be the greatest currency in the heavyweight division. So I think Walt Harris should just take his time, relax, and then come back when he feels he's perfectly fit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it seems like it must be very difficult to stay fit during times like this when you have to work out at home, stay tone. Do you have anything to add onto that? What it's like for a fighter?
Actually, the heavyweight title bout that's coming up soon, Stipe and DC, Daniel Cormier, they were talking about how Stipe was having trouble even getting his team's gym open when he's the biggest fighter there, just because the gym owners weren't willing to risk opening up and then transmitting the virus and endangering families. So even the heavyweight champion of the world is talking about how difficult it is to get into the gym and get trained consistently. So yeah, it's tough for these fighters to go out and do what they do, man, but they're warriors.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. Let's move into UFC 249 for
Yeah.
more specifically. This was fun. I saw Gagey defeat Ferguson in what I would say was very entertaining. So now that Gagey is the interim champ, how does he fare against Khabib in the title unification?
Yeah. So in every fight, Khabib has basically the same strategy. He throws a couple punches, and then he uses his absolutely world-class wrestling to take them down, keep them there, and then beat them up, and then eventually submit them, like he did with Dustin, like he did with Conor, like he did with Edson Barboza, Michael Johnson. He's done this with everybody. Now the question lies: can he just as easily take down and maul a NCAA multiple-time All-American, like a D1 All-American? Is it going to be that easy? Now, if Khabib can find a way to take him down, then it's going to be the same thing like every other fight. If Justin can find a way to use his scrambling and his wrestling to stuff a couple takedowns and tire Khabib out, and Khabib is forced to stand on the feet with Justin Gaethje, then we may have a new champion, which is Justin Gaethje. He can hit Khabib with his shots hard enough, shots that could take down even the great Tony Ferguson. Then I don't think he's going to have a problem finishing Khabib on the feet.
Okay, and the other fight of the night, Dominic Cruz versus Henry Cejudo, right? Did you see that one?
Yeah, of course.
So Cruz is arguably the greatest bantamweight of all time. And on the other hand, Cejudo is arguably the greatest combat athlete of all time. And he was defending his title, right? And so there was a bit of controversy in this fight. Can you sort of break down what went down?
So it was towards the beginning of the second round. Cejudo catches Dominic with a clean knee and then goes in and tries to finish him on the feet. Catches him with a big right hand and a couple other shots. And then he's down, turtled up, and the ref stops the fight. Now, Dominic Cruz's point of contention was that he was on his way back up. He was building back up to his feet, and so the fight should not have been stopped. Cejudo's point was he was on the ground getting beat up. And then later in the post-fight interview and then afterwards in the other interviews, Dominic Cruz said that Keith Peterson smelled of like alcohol and cigarettes, whatever. Later, Herb Dean basically went on air and said if somebody was smoking and drinking at the event and he was a referee that was paid to make sure these guys don't kill each other, he would be fired by now. Basically, the fans all agree that Dominic Cruz sort of, as great as he is, he had a bad night and was looking for excuses. I mean, that's about it. Henry Cejudo, after the fight, he went on and retired. In his interview with Joe Rogan, he said, I've done everything there is to do. He won the Olympics at 21 years old in freestyle wrestling, which is arguably the hardest Olympic sport. And then makes his transition to the UFC, beats everyone up, wins the flyweight belt, wins the bantamweight belt, defends both belts, and goes off into the sunset. Henry Cejudo retires. He's done everything he said he was going to do, and then he left. The king of cringe, Triple C, whatever you want to call him. He's the greatest combat athlete of all time. No question about it.
Yeah, so what you're saying essentially is Cejudo deserved the win, right?
Yeah.
Though there was controversy.
Yeah. People are going to make controversy out of anything. I mean, anyone on a mic can rile people up, but Cejudo is deservedly the UFC bantamweight champion. And fun fact, yesterday, or I believe the day before, Cejudo officially got stripped. He officially retired. The UFC is now going to be looking for a bantamweight champion. I just thought that was a fun way to like leave the conversation open because we don't know who it's going to be. But yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So thank you for coming on. There's more UFC events coming up soon, right?
Mm-hmm. Tyron Woodley will face Gilbert Burns in the main event of the next UFC, which is going to be crazy. Tyron Woodley, 5-time world champ, Gilbert Burns, multiple-time. Like, that's one of the cases where you have an elite striker and an elite grappler, and you don't know what's going to happen because they both are good at both things, and it could be a barnstorm or it could be the most boring thing in the world, and you never know. And that's why it's fun. T. Wood versus Gilbert Burns, man.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to be looking forward to it. I'm probably going to tune in now. Like, that was some very valuable info that you gave me, and I'm excited about it. So thank you for joining us on this UFC segment. We hope to have you on later on in the amidst this pandemic.